Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for joining me as I explore the wide world of pens. I enjoy sharing my adventures with you. Yes, we have a box. It has a quaint saying on it, and that's about it. Let's look at what's inside. We have a classic frosted plastic clamshell cover box. It has Asvine in the corner there. This pops off. We'll see the pen and a nice instruction manual written in English covering the different filling mechanisms and also talking about maintaining your fountain pen and service. So that's nice. So as we pull the pen out of its secure position in that piece of foam, we'll see it looks kind of familiar and maybe not, but it's a P30 and it is labeled on the back. And the other thing that's nice is the engraving on that faux cap band is also very nice. Yes, it's a antiqued brass finish. It's a nice heavy pen. Piston filler with a nice blind cap here. The cap comes off in a little over 1.5 turns, and we'll see that standard section with a nice Asvine medium nib. Big M for medium there. It's nice that everything is labeled. That plastic feed is the standard plastic feed. That nib assembly just unscrews. I'm not going to take it apart. I've taken these piston fillers apart. I'll give you links to the videos where I did that. You can see there's a little flat spot there on the top of that piston assembly, and you can see the threads there in the barrel, so that's easy to take apart, and that's something that a lot of pens now allow you to do. So we're going to compare this to some other pens, obviously the P30, but also the Moonman T1 in brass. Stay tuned. Here we have the pen rotating on a turntable held up by a crab. They love their work. And a heavy pen like this makes them work. I always like to be fully transparent in all my reviews, so this pen was sent to me by Asvine for a review. And I waited until the pen was finally available. Here's a listing on Amazon. It's also on Etsy and eBay. So for those of you that would like to own this pen, there are many ways that you can purchase it. So we're going to dive in, take a look at this pen in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to give you the upfront transparency. And Mr. Crab is enjoying his job, and Miss Sizemore and Mr. Sizemore are also enjoying their view of the pen. The crab gives you a wink and we'll continue on. Just a reminder, this is the first Asvine pen. It's labeled Asvine, but no model on the back. It is a V169, I think. Nice skeleton metal overlay. Came in various colors, silver and gold, and various inside acrylic colors, all Cyanogen transparent. It was a vac filler. As you can see, I have the cap undone because I like to write with it and I forget to undo the cap, so I leave it undone. Here we see the two other Asvine pens and a Moonman T1 in brass. So this was their first piston filler, and it was a P30, but again, not labeled. So this one, the only way you're going to know is by looking at the nib. And again, it's another medium. I like my medium nibs. Nice ink window. I really like the resin in this pen. I've enjoyed it since I got it. And if you compare it to the P30, not a lot in common, other than piston fillers. Weight, obviously, pretty different, but not as substantial as you would think. But here's the pen that we're going to compare it to, the T1 from Moonman. This is a very heavy pen, almost 15 grams heavier than the P30, but it has the identical piston filling system in it. We unscrew these caps. The sections are a little different. I have a ground cursive italic nib that I put into the T1, which I enjoy writing with. But the sections here are identical, and I think the piston filling system is identical, but the blind caps are different. A rounded one versus the flat top one. You can see how those threads look. And the antiquing of that brass is just slightly different, but not a lot. And I talked to Asvine about it, and they said, yeah, the barrel and filling mechanism came from the same factory that made the Moonman pen. So that's one reason why they share those similarities to it. But Asvine has put their own design touches on their version of a piston fill brass pen with a clear barrel. So you may ask, does the pen seal up well? Well, I have it capped, and all we have here is air. As we turn the piston down, we'll feel resistance. And the air actually pushes it back. So I'd say it seals pretty good. So I know I said I was going to pull the nib and feed out, but I unscrewed this assembly. Great that there's two O-rings, one up here at the top and one down at the bottom, so it's going to keep that ink where it should be. It's a nicely engraved nib. And we have a big M there for medium. And it has nice tipping material. Well made. So I think it's very interesting to compare the Asvine P30 with the Wingsung 699. Both piston fillers. Very similar shape. They have that conical end. I mean, they're not identical, but that shape of that clip is certainly pretty close. No Wingsung logo there like there is on the Wingsung. Different cap bands, obviously, because metal cap versus an injection molded cap. And we have a blind cap at the end. This pen is not as translucent, but you can still see the ink level with a nice strong light. This weighs substantially less. We'll show you those weights of the pens, both inked up. As we talked about, this takes a little bit over 1.5 turns to get the cap off. The 699 takes about 1.25, slightly more, so about a half a turn less. Both of them have a nice number 6 size nib, and both of them have a medium nib. The Wingsung one is a nice two-tone nib. Section fairly similar, not identical, but similar. And as we go through, you can see a little bit of the piston mechanism there through that translucent blue. There's those threads. Obviously, it can be disassembled with the right tool. I think it'd be interesting to look at the engraving on the cap bands between these two pens, the Wingsung 699 and the Asvine P30. The Asvine certainly has a nicer engraving, and it appears that they've made very small little dots, so it probably took longer for the laser to engrave the P30. So another thing to compare about these two pens is the way the cap is done. Obviously, this is a injection molded plastic cap, and here's a brass cap. And what's also interesting is how they post. Very high, but secure. And this one posts much lower. As you can see, there's a substantial difference in the posted length between the two pens. But what's really nice is how that inside of the cap is done. So let's take a look at that. There's a plastic liner all the way up and down on the brass pen. If we look inside the plastic pen, we'll see there's only that little area that seals up against the section. So the inner diameter here, the opening that you would use to post, is smaller than the opening here. Henceforth, this cap doesn't post as deeply. Hopefully, part of the design attributes when you start using different materials to make a pen. So what ink to put in the pen? Well, this ink called out to me. Haven't used it in a while. It should match up well with this antique brass coating. And I did my normal 3 ups and downs after I flushed the nib assembly out with some soapy water. And I think that's a pretty good fill. By weight, I measured it to be 2.1 milliliters. Nice fill. And the other thing you'll notice is the ink doesn't seem to stick much to that inside surface, so I expect it will have good flow and the ink's not going to get stuck up away from the nib. Now it's time for some measurements. Here's some of those critical dimensions of this P30 pen. And also some editorial comments. So my first comment about the pen is it's heavy, but a lot of weight is in the cap. So when it's uncapped, it feels very nice in the hand. That section's a good size. It's certainly plenty long enough to fit in my hand without posting. And yes, if you need to, you can post it. And it does post securely because of the plastic liner inside of the cap. But that cap definitely does backweight the pen quite a bit. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. But if you're a poster and you must post, you can post, and it does stay there. So do I like this pen? I like the pen visually. The nib works very well. Nice amount of ink there, a little bit over 2 milliliters based on my measurements. So let's again take a look at that nib writing. So I like the nib. Hopefully you can appreciate it. It works well. Puts down nice ink. And I think it does well with this mud puddle ink from Birmingham. So I give this a thumbs up. I recommend it, but obviously you're going to have to like a heavy metal pen. But many people really like this antique finish. And it's not that slippery. I mean, it's a little bit more slippery than a normal acrylic section, but it's certainly not as slippery as a nice chrome section can be. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at a new pen that was just released a few days ago. I hope this video finds all of you safe, healthy, and happy. I want to thank all of you for watching and spending a little bit of your time with me exploring the wide world of pens. Enjoy your pens, put some ink down, appreciate this amount of engineering making a pen like this and selling it for a very reasonable amount of money. That always makes my day. If we've reached the end of this video, and we're going to say bye until the next one. That nib really consistently writes well. I enjoy this pen.